Hey guys, how are you doing? Welcome. And I want to talk to you about hyperstagflation, a phrase we've been using since 2011, how it came about, what it means to me, and why I think it's relevant for the times we are in, and tell you a little bit about that. I'm going to tie it in also with our latest actions from your very own Zio hero, who's such a tough negotiator, Donald J. Trump. Woo! Mega, 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 woof, woof. Yeah, he is securing money from NVIDIA and Apple and all of these things. What a negotiator. Aren't we so glad we sent him to go practice acting on The Apprentice just before all that happened? Yep. Let's get looking at a couple of key things that I've been wanting to show you. It's been a better part of a day throwing all the ideas down on a document. So remember to screen share, he says to himself, and make sure you're opening the right document. How are you guys? By the way, some people get upset. They say, why do you say, tell us where we're from and all of that? It's an invitation for engagement. Type something in and we like to know which countries are checking in with us at which times, where you're from, so we can answer specific aspects for how we think it plays out in your country, although there's a lot of synchronization. Also, what's at the forefront of your mind economically? Put them in right there. So let's go to a share screen straight away, because I've not been the best at that recently. Better, yes, tunneling time. Okay, let's get the document prepared. Woo, that's kind of cool. It's kind of like an LSD trip. I should have you guys look at it a little longer. There you go. What do I know about LSD trips? Ooh, not that much, actually, if I'm honest. So here we go. Hyperstagflation. Let's have a look, and hopefully it's showing. Let's see it. So first of all, there is no official word that talks of hyperstagflation. Let me see. Yep, the Word document is there. It's something I've constructed. So in HVF method, we've constructed a lot of phraseology for very unique technical analysis components that we utilize that goes with HVF method, such as funneling and many other words, scenario cost. These are the things. So language should adapt for what you need. We don't want to make a forecast. We don't want to say forecast. That means I am bound to that. I want to say of many options, here is one scenario. Hence why we needed the phrase scenario. Why does hyperstagflation come out? There's already a word called stagflation. Why do you need to do that? Who do you think you are? Some might say. Oxford Dictionary might not approve. I don't care. I'm trying to communicate certain messages. And by the way, we don't own rights over English, as I'll be showing you. So quite some time ago, I was talking to Daniel Priestley, who shows up on Diary of the CEO quite a lot. Or I sent him an email anyway, I can't quite remember. And this was it some time ago. I actually want to make this a bit bigger, so let's expand it. I said, hey, Daniel, because I was always talking about the economy, and he was talking about entrepreneurship, as he's doing on Diary of the CEO. Observed this URL, and it was called Global Stagflation. This was written in 2011. I said, hey, this is the reason why we're going to be posting from globalstagflation.com, which was a URL I'd secured. Inflation plus recession equals stagflation. This was in 2011. That was a pretty poor economic environment following the subprime crash of 08, 09 into 10. I sent a video. There was one of these diagrammatic videos on debt, because it was something at the time I don't think he'd explored that much. He was more on the entrepreneurship. I was more on the economy, and that was our discussion. And basically, that was when I was talking about a global phenomenon of normal stagflation. However, as things went, I quickly gave up that URL, because I decided it's less about the fact that this is global and synchronized, which I believe it is, particularly harshly on the West. But it's actually going to be a much more extreme reason. And one of the reasons I chose to pivot on that global stagflation to hyperstagflation is that everyone I spoke to, where I mentioned stagflation, they all said, oh, you mean like the 70s? If they were of a certain age group. Of course, if they were 30, 20 or younger, and in fact, this was in 2011 when I was in my 40s, they wouldn't really know. And I was quite young, to be fair, in the 70s, but I had enough childhood memories because I was interested in those kind of things. So I have a lot of memory of the inflation, the economics, and everything that was going on. So most people of the older generation would say, oh, you mean like the 70s. Now, here's something you need to stop, because when people learn, rather than jump into the abyss, they cling to things they already know, and then they associate. So you say, this new thing you're teaching me kind of is like this thing, so that they try bond onto something that they already have a concept of. And that's called association. And actually, you have to get comfortable in it's nothing like that. You go stand in the river 30 years later in the exact same place. It's not the same water molecules. You're no longer made up of the same cells. It's actually totally different. You could be sick and healthy. You could be all sorts of different things. It could be winter. It could be something else. So this associated thinking is not serving. And so I chose to say, put a word in there that makes it different. And how do we think it's different? It needed magnifying. And mega stagflation sounds stupid. In fact, we already had a word called hyperinflation, which means extremely high inflation. But we wanted to say stubbornly very high, but not hyper, that it goes deep into double digits and even into triple digits. That would bring about almost entire collapse. But stubbornly double digit high, lower double digits high, in an environment where there is extreme levels of stagnation. The streets, the shops closed up, the border. I did the Coinbase ad on the United Kingdom as a stream not so long ago, and it showed a kind of vibe that you get. The rubbish unpicked up, and I'll be referring back to that in a minute, that all kind of brings the stagnate part. They were going to be extreme versions of the stagnation in combination with very high versions of the inflation, but not hyperinflation and not a hyperstagnation, but a hyperstagflation. The collective is at its extreme. It's all the worst. And it's an inverse Goldilocks economy, because I was often talking, and prior to the subprime crash, we had the Goldilocks economy, and I was doing the same thing. We started the YouTube channel in 2009, but we were talking and reading all about what Greenspan had to say right before, 96, 97, 98, reading Zero Hedge, trading, not yet got a YouTube channel, talking about all of these things, the Goldilocks economy. There's no inflation, he said. We seem to have very low inflation, and meanwhile, the asset prices were just on a rip. And asset prices rip first, always. The liquidity was there, and it was ripping into everything. It ripped into .com stocks. It then ripped into property. It was ripping into everything, but inflation was staying low. Globalization was a dimming force while we were getting artificially low rates out of Greenspan, who said, we can't seem to create inflation. Not that you should be trying, but bankers love it. The central bankers love inflation. Why? Debasement, taxation of you. We'll be coming back to that point again as well. So we wanted a phrase that was the opposite of the Goldilocks economy, where you had everything going up, everybody feeling wealthier at the consumer level, house prices going up, share portfolios going up, super cheap borrowing all the time, and clothing prices staying low more and more. The Philip Greens of this world, of BHS, British Home Stores. For those of you, I was there during that period, and he was going to China and getting everything done. And of course, later paying his wife in Monaco a tax-free mega dividend running into billions, and then leaving a company short on its pension by a great deal, kind of like Maxwell did before on the Mirror. Do you see the pattern there? Just a little historical note. Maybe you shouldn't be noticing patterns. Maybe that's criminal. Maybe you're an antiseptic. I don't know. But I'm just pointing that out. A lot of that went down. I've always felt that the 70s, we are in far worse shape coming for a 70s type era than we were in the 70s. What people don't realize when they say, oh, you mean the stagnation of the 70s? America's debt to GDP was significantly lower. Let's be clear, significantly lower. It certainly wasn't 130%. And it had a lot of power, goodwill. It still had a lot of manufacturing at home. And it was at peak America, 70s, 80s, peak America. 90s started to fray a little bit, but then we had the dot-com boom. After the dot-com boom was the first major strike for the death in America. Then the subprime boom was absolutely fatal, and we'll be coming to some numbers for that. Anyway, I went and looked and thought, well, I'll start a YouTube channel on hyperstagflation. At that point, I was doing them HVF method, and I hadn't decided whether I was going to do an economic or I was going to do the technical analysis. Now, of course, the technical analysis is the best tool for building wealth, and I'm going to be explaining how HVF method has allowed us to make some of the best trades, best calls macroeconomically in the market. So it is the absolute winner. But I thought I wanted an economic channel as well. I put in hyperstagflation to see if I could get the name and start that particular YouTube channel. And I actually found that somebody had already did that. And he'd started in 2009, the same time I'd started the Market Sniper, which was our HVF method technical approach. He only did it for that year and never continued, but the channel still exists today. And all his videos are 16 years old and still left up there. And some of them are pretty good and worth a watch. So what I realized is you think you've had a thought and it's unique to you, and somebody else has also had it, and he's gone and actually done something that you'd yet to do. So we never got the Hyperstagflation YouTube channel. We never got anything, but I never got to hear who that gent was. He seems to have moved on. It's part of our lexicon that we've been referring to for decades plus. And now I need to probably say, well, you should define it properly in terms of everybody and go over where we are macroeconomically. This is not an HVF method charting video. Some primer economics first. At the time in 2009, this particular person who started the stagflation video commented that the monetary base in the short span of 6 months had doubled after the subprime crash. And he's right. And further to that, I can add CV19, we've added 31% of all money just in the 5.5 years that have just passed, back to 2019, the back end of 2019 going into March 2020. Think of that, 31%. 1 in 3 is a new dollar. In the digital sense, most money is digital, please understand, but 1 in 3 is a new dollar in the last barely over 5 years. So cutting back the monetary base to stop inflation is not going to happen. It's just politically not going to happen. So disregard this option. We are in the keep on digging mode. Hence why you get the big, beautiful bill. That is a bulldozer dig. It is a real dig. We are going to go for Australia here. Starting in America, we're going all the way to Australia. This isn't a dig, this is a tunnel. So first things first, we want to bring in AI here and technology. And many people correctly point out, I've known this for a while, but you'll always hear Lynn Alden say this. You might even hear Michael Saylor say this. Technology is deflationary. You'll be able to do more, computers cost less, chips cost less, you can work faster, quicker, etc. It is actually reduces inflation. Now that's a problem if you tax your population utilizing inflation. That's why you get the proliferators. That's right, the central bankers have always been the proliferators. They need you in inflation. And remember, as I sometimes described, you can have one foot in a bucket of coals, red hot coals, and another in the bucket of ice, and on average be okay. You actually get different parts of an economy that can be inflating and one that can be deflating. Now, the AI cycle, everybody's talking about the AI cycle. It's going to be very much like the technology of the internet was disinflationary. It allows us to work from home. It's less travel time, less queues. We're more efficient. It's actually been deflationary for us. We spend less money if you don't have to go into the office, etc., etc. Less corporate expenditures on big offices in towns, etc. for companies. That's why commercial property is a bust. That's right. Don't be buying the second and the third grade level of commercial property. That's why pensions that are in commercial properties are a bust. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. These are all technologies that inherently, these technologies will reduce costs of living. Technology reduce cost of living. We should love it for that, in actual fact. And AI is going to do that in a big, big way. Now, you're already seeing a couple of other things that are going on, and I want to do a little bit of a sidebar here. Bitcoin miner cycle along with AI cycle. The head of NVIDIA came out and said that in actual fact, he'll keep selling the latest chips to the AI providers, the ChatGPTs of the world, because they're always going to need faster, better, quicker, and there's going to be an upgrade cycle. Think of chips from NVIDIA like phones. When you had your old Nokia flip phone, and now you suddenly need an app that you can't run on it, you need to upgrade the device. Well, chips are kind of like the same. And it was the same in Bitcoin mining. Remember Bitcoin, that thing is 100% organic and decentralized. That's right. Well, apparently you have to keep upgrading the chips if you want to be a good miner, and actually profits in mining got commoditized. They went from super normal profits to much, much less, and then you had to buy chips and you had to locate near low energy. And what actually happens in that case is you and I with our laptops no longer got to be miners. It was a pointless endeavor. You never got payment blocks. Even if you aggregated, it went to all the big players that had all the latest equipment, the massive, you needed scale, scale, scale. Just like why most of you aren't farmers in your little third of an acre plot at home. You're relying on someone else who's scaled to provide that for you cheaper by effort and time so that you can focus on something else. It's called economies of scale. This is an economic discussion. Yes, you're going to learn more than you could ever learn on an MBA in economics. And you'll laugh a lot more whilst doing so, I do suggest. Anyway, so the Bitcoin that's so decentralized has gone to the extreme where most of the players that do it are very, very big. And that means centralization? No, I don't think so, but they'll tell you so. They'll tell you so. Because geographically, there might be different, hubs that are doing it. Centralization, indeed, it sounds like. And AI and the chip makers, the NVIDIA, and who are the guys that are providing? Well, it's Elon Musk. It's Google, our AI frontmen of the Rockefeller cult, elongated muskiness with Grok, Google with ChatGPT and Microsoft, So Bill Gates, Bezos, Musk, and Ellison probably. Who knows? Maybe Richard Branson will even get in. I've said Musk twice. We don't have to double Musk. That's a bit too musky. So where the financials on power and costs and chip upgrade schedules will be set on being competitive. They're going to have to keep upgrading, keep doing this. AI is going to be centralized in those frontmen for the Rockefeller cartel families. So they're profiling you while giving you a service, much like the devices, much like the TVs that are listening to you, but harvesting your data. How do you say, how do you speak, how do you everything? You are the product if it's for cheap or free. Recognize that. This sadly deeply implies to me that control by the NWO cult and their proxies, who are the likes of Zuckerberg and all the names I've already mentioned. So why will they pursue aggressive inflation policies in an environment of stagnation? And why will it be hyper, in other words, higher and worse than and more extreme than the 70s? So they have got way too much debt. That's one. But before we do that, let's deal with the technology deflation. They have to counter the deflation that AI is going to do. If we really use AI, you can lay off staff members if you're a medium-sized business to a great degree. You can increase productivity for a cost of a premium Grok or ChatGPT account. Jobs are going to be lost. It's going to be deflationary. Your business costs will go down. It could have price reductions on certain services as they use more robotics and much cleverer ChatGPT type service provision. You'll never get to speak to a human again, basically. I'm not celebrating that, but who knows? Most of buying now is already pretty much like that. So inflation is their primary taxation trick. They need it to be back, so they're going to pursue very aggressive inflationary policies, and they currently are, while pretending they're not. More on how Trump is doing that, and then saying to Powell, you need to cut rates, the poor consumer, all that fake kabuki theater that you're being presented with. They have the huge debt piles that I was referring to, and you have to view debt and fiat as synonymous. Dollar, you do not get a debt rebased downside, devaluation without a fiat devaluation. You must understand, these are Siamese twins. The umbilical cord is still tied. You drag the one down, you drag the other one, and they absolutely need to do this because they've proliferated far too much. Something we've been saying for a long time, I think most of you get. So that's why they need inflation. Now, when you need inflation, there's a couple of things you can do. You can actually eventually, not just where you've had asset prices inflate and houses and stock markets and everything, you actually want the slice of bread on a man's plate to go up. The butter, the meat, the everything. We're talking about commodities. We are going to see in the end, and it's the last thing to turn, and that's why it's called a commodity. So we need a separate discussion quickly to explain commoditization. When you're in business, you have supernormal profits when you start a new business and you're the only guy. Competition brings copycats that start to do what you do and normalizes profits till eventually those costs and input costs are creeping up. The people that originally thought it was a novel and new product, it's now a little bit of a pullback. It's no longer new. And some people start to make losses, bankruptcy, and they exit the market. Eventually, you have to get scale to make your crogs in any particular color, not just pink, and you need a massive factory and an immense supplier of rubber, and you need to buy cheap odd scale to make them at a price that they'll still sell. And that is called commoditization of a product. Commoditization means you just get normal profit when you are an excellent scaled executioner. Farmers on farms use all technologies, run 64,000, 130,000 hectare farms on a family of 5 or 6 workers, and huge balance sheet of clever tractors, combine harvesters, and everything else. And now there's not much room, and then they'll make their 150 grand a year profit for the farmer at the end. Nothing too special, maybe. Some might make a bit more. These are just out there rough ideas. There are no more supernormal profits, and the business is incredibly efficient. So your bread and food are at the commoditized level. When those prices turn, not housing, not speedboats, not fancy cars, Ferrari listing 4x4s at 400, 500,000 before you even spec them with any extras on, not the fluff that skims the real rich liquid lot. We're talking about the bread on your table goes up. Then you are knowing that inflation is deep in the system. That commoditized products that are incredibly price sensitive have to be scale produced. When those prices are forced up, and remember, there's lots of other farmers with big farms and combine harvesters, but they can't survive anymore without that going up. You are at the ground floor of where inflation really starts to bite. And that's where we are. Remember the Japanese, and 100% up on their rice, and I don't know how many years, the 136 or 138% climb in the last 5 years on the Walmart bill. That's 2.3 times, 2.4 times the bill, by the way, over 5 years. So 5 years, wow, half of a 5x, basically. that is highlighting that in actual fact, we've got already to that deep inflation that is hitting the stuff that is easily made in scale with very thin margins. And it's now dictating that those prices, which are normally not very elastic, have to go up just to maintain. So hopefully everybody understood that. So what they want is they also want rate hikes to debase the debt. The debasement of the debt in the end will crash also assets that have required leverage to go up, of which housing is going to be one of the core ones. So that is why housing is heavy with stock at the moment in the US. Let's largely speak about the US here, the most important geography in terms of all of this. And that's why you're likely to face a housing correction. However, in the same time, if we're debasing the dollar so fast, some of that correction, much like the debt that needs to be debased, is taking place in the fiat itself. Now, the dollar's been very weak, again, similarly compromised, also falling out of the plane, skydivers from Europe, Switzerland, Japan, and China. However, the dollar's been the fattest of the lot so far, and you're even seeing its lack of performance relative to those countries, but it's needed because the debasement is needed. It's needed because of the deficits that America has with Switzerland, Europe, and China, the big economic blocs, China and the EU, massive record deficits. So by devaluing the dollar, they tax you and make those imports more expensive. Mr. America, tariffs are a tax on US consumers. We'll be coming back to that and saying it more. That's why he's tariffing. He also needs the money. Tax scavenge mode. We'll be coming back to that too. They need a crisis also. Another reason they want inflation is they will need a crisis to introduce their surveillance grid of reduced freedoms and totalitarianism. A bit of cheerful stuff. Let's get some cheerful stuff. Go, yeah, bring it, I want it. Yeah, the breadline is a very powerful place. Remember the Arab Spring that actually hopped over the fork in the chain, Saudi Arabia, which is where the word Arab actually comes from. So it's quite unfortunate and curious naming standards that it runs from Morocco right the way through to Egypt, but actually doesn't deal with the country that has Arabia in it. But anyway, you know the CIA and the Mossad operatives, who they're pals and who are not. So you will know how that rolls. Nefarious actors to squeeze the cost of living in a baptism of debt and fiat debasement. So what does that mean? They'll seek to pursue these inflation policies through intent and surging the commodity prices. So you are going to start to see, well, we've already had bits of it on the softs. So when you talk about agris, they're often referred to as softs. We've already seen it in cocoa and the beans. You've heard us talk about HVF technical setups in the soft markets on cocos and beans and various other things, but you don't just have cocoa and chocolate to eat at home and beans. Eggs, milk, everything. Meat, chicken, all of these aspects are going to continue to climb very, very high, and they are commoditized, and that is, they have to climb high now because the margins that are so thin on them are no longer there, and the buying power of the dollar is no longer weak. To get the new combine harvester, to repair all of these things requires investment, and the profits in farming are just not there. And we're going to come back also to farms, because a certain group of people have been investing in farmland. Gates, Zuckerberg, Bezos, BlackRock, and Blackstone, you know, the little friend company that he also used to work with and had a pretend fallout, but named his company very much like the other one, which is also the thing they walk about in their little Kabbalist rituals and also in, you know, everywhere else. And the Blackstone picture, that is the most expensive piece of art, and art is such a rigged tax ripoff industry that's run by the same criminals. In the UK, aging farmers are being paid more than the returns they get to not farm. So hold on, who's doing that? Well, it sounds like something's going on in the farm world, and farming is agri that leads to softs, that leads to food in your table. What's going on? What's going down? The shifty reasons are given: cow farts. Methane in cow farts are destroying the ozone layer and we're all going to die. The cows did it. It's murder. It's industrial farming, farting cows. Isn't that fascinating? The Dutch, a nation of farmers, by the way, we have the Boers that are descendants of the Dutch that farm, and they have experienced chronic curtailments of their businesses through the WEF, the EU, and their local governments, the puppets that are institutionalized proxies for World Economic Forum, the EU, United Nations, and the legacy families and Talmudic cult. Food supply control is the boot on the throat. That's what we learned about the Arabian Spring. And in fact, it's also what we learned about the Bolshevik Revolution. Anyone? Bolshevik Revolution, anyone? Did anyone see emaciated, blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids, filthy as sin, standing outside dirty huts, being starved in Russia? Have you not seen the pictures? Start looking. Open up your eyes and go and check up on the history. Somewhere between 25 and 66 million, dare I say the number, that were absolutely brutally murdered, starved, raped. The religious sector were actually tortured, as you do when you institute communism, as it happened, same under Mao, same in Cambodia, the killing field, same everywhere. And you should be worried about that because communism is coming to you. Yay! Aren't we glad? This is a cheery Monday session. Isn't it a cheery Monday session? Let's have some high fives. Wow! Yeah, the commies are coming. Genocide. How do you do that? Anyway, food supply control is the boots on the throat. That's what they're going to do. They're going to deliver rocketing in prices at the dinner table level, forcing many to the breadline and beyond. The next stage, not the next stage, he can't type, maybe the Soviet-style emptying of shelves. Now, when what they do is people eventually can't produce at a price, and they bring in price controls. They bring in price controls to say the government must be seen to act. Remember, be seen to act is not sincerity, and it's not kindness. It is optics. You know this beautiful word that's come out. The optics. They all say it. They sound so suave and intelligent when they say, but the optics are wrong. I tend to want to give them a little one of those short, sharp slaps in the face and say, never mind optics. What about principle? What about humanity, you rodent? But anyway, they'll pucker on about optics. So in the name of optics, your politician and party will decide we will stop those nasty farmers and food producers. Actually, they've captured, the farmers don't make the money, the supermarket chains, captured by a certain kind of people, actually screw the farmers real hard, tell them how deep and how high they must jump and how they must produce their products. And the EU will tell you your blackberries are the wrong size and your banana bend is not the right angle. Yes, they do that, all in the name of cosmetically beautiful optics on your food. But don't worry, they'll blame the farmers just like they blamed the energy companies when the heat went up. Never mind the fact that they allowed a little bit of international terrorism by a good old buddy in the USA to blow up a pipe. Never mind the cheap gas from Russians. We'll have expensive gas from Houston, put on a boat in liquid format and sent right across the ocean. And we pay more for that. There's a good idea. Why not? Because it helped the trade deficit for America. For America. That's right. Anyway, so with the optics of that, they will bring in price controls. And what then happens is you go through the full Soviet experience brought to you by the Bolsheviks. Yes, you know them. You know who they are. And you will face empty shelves, empty shelves, empty shelves, long lines, a couple of loaves of bread at an absolute pittance of a money that now resembles very little. Oh, you didn't get, but we did have bread cheap. But you didn't have enough. And guess who runs the black market in an intermediation of products at a much higher price, but you don't have to stand at a queue. You'll pay 10x for your bread. You'll pay 10x for your eggs. It'll be the real market price now that the market controllers have created a phony price mechanism that they can't support in a not-for-profit, loss-based situation, bread at a very low price. No, they'll just undersupply it and make all the profits they should be making in the black market for the rich few who can afford to pay. That's called the VIP queue. That's like when you fly business class and you feel special and you look at the peasants lining up and standing with their squealing babes and all of that, and you say, oh, I turn left when I hit the plane rather than right. Or better still, you jump on a jet. Either way, that's snobbery. That's what's coming. Two-tier, polarized society. I most watch YouTube. The polarization of. The polarization of. The world is coming to a point of absolute polarization. Those who prepared for hyperstagflation, as we are busy defining it, and those that didn't. Those that positioned for money must go up, money must deliver 15 to 20% in my opinion, otherwise you are going backwards. That sounds high, they say. That sounds high. Go look at John Williams's stats as per the Ronald Reagan in 1982. Then look at all the frictional costs. Then look at your own personal inflation rate and how you choose to live. I like a little Wagyu every now and then. You know me, a little bit of juicy, fatty steak that's been massaged by a little Japanese man, although probably most of them haven't even seen Japan or been massaged. But nonetheless, your personal inflation will exceed whatever the average is because you're smart. If you're following this channel, you're clearly smarter and live better than most of the rest of the tropes. So it will be higher. So what happens is we get the global skimming tax, that is the oil price. That will rise last. At the moment, consumer wrecked, oil low. We've highlighted this by saying buy the reserve asset, not the energy. That's why we said to you, go long gold, short oil. If you want to be delta neutral, you can be very leveraged at quite a high level because you have a short on if the market crashed on the energy levels. And as we've already highlighted in previous charting videos, that inverted head and shoulder has smashed through to 53 barrels and probably will go higher for a while. So my prediction is oil and oil related will run eventually, but it will be one of the ones that run near the end, along with the bread, the rice, and all the basic stuffs, and even possibly a bit later. So that is the skimming tax because there's plenty oil. It's not lazy aged dinosaur bones, kiddies. Please trust me. Oil does not come from lazy aged dinosaur bones. Okay, there isn't a shortage of lazy aged dinosaur bones in the soil, or let me rather say the supply of oil. There isn't cheap oil though. When you have to dig holes and scratch around, there's nothing cheap. There's not $30 oil. There's not $15 oil. There's plenty of big dollars oil still to be found if it is needed. The globe creates it. We float on a sea of it. So oil is the Rockefeller tax getting it out. So we need to watch for softs, precious metals, all to make new highs. And in fact, they will be helping that happen. And all those nefarious actors that have been investing in farming probably point to the possibility that they could throttle supply in various global geographic, particularly Western areas, where a bit of starvation and Bolshevism and super high prices, sell a kidney, get a month's worth of bread, you name it, they'll be doing it. Of course, they do the organ trade too. That wasn't just a joke. There's some facts in it as well. So they will do all these things, and you should expect this. And then there will be theater, politicians helping against the price gouging fire. You can imagine, you can see Donald Trump calling in CEOs of big food companies to say, he should be fired, prices should be lower for Americans. And all the MAGA crew will go, yay tariffs, yay Donald, yay you tell him. And at the same time, he'll do the big beautiful bill, the big surveillance bill, the big scrape all their data bill, the big be able to bomb them on WhatsApp through a pager bill. You name it, they'll not remember that. They'll not remember the Epstein list. They'll not remember any of that. Donald's my man. Donald is my man. Capital crowding out. Now, here's what's happening as well. Mega corporate, fascist, and statist seeded entities that you all think came out of a Californian basement, a dorm, or a garage. Nvidia, Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, you name them, they're all in the mix there, are starving out all other businesses of investment and are huge holding pens for long-term accelerated growth by ETFs, no less, created by BlackRock, Lowell Finkelstein, Lowe's, that brought you the inversion perversion that sees your football team have to have a cranky flag with all sorts of ridiculous colors because why? Inversion perversion, transgenderism is cool like that. We've all got to be more trans kind, even though I've never really met someone in that situation. And if I ever did, I'd treat him like anybody else. We all should be punished and hated because of it. That's right. Lowell Finkelstein was able to do this because all your investments that would have gone into individual equities went into ETFs instead, and they did auto buying on an algorithm at a low cost, and they got your proxy votes. And that's why they changed boards. That's why Starbucks says everybody we hire will be transgender in the next 3 months. That's why they did BLM. That's why Nike did the adverts it did. That's why Gillette did the adverts it did. You gave your equity buying voting power to a non-diverse board of supremacist murderers and Bolsheviks. That's what you did. And you don't hate that company enough, and you gave them that power. Because you bought a Vanguard ETF, you bought a BlackRock ETF, you bought a State Street ETF. You did it. And that pipeline of capital gave them your voting power to bully corporations into ridiculous notions that are anti the indigenous population, the people that built and run America on their own backs. You got turned into an unwelcome guest in your own home. That's who did it. You don't hate the Pelosi, ADL, APAC, captured US political figures that are all centimillionaires on $250,000 salary in government. They're busy doing the same with Palantir right now. It's been pushed into the S&P 500. Do you know what that means? That means now every ETF will buy Palantir stock, auto buy. You now have the big money pipe that all of you are paying in your mutual funds to Vanguard, and many of you won't be doing this. I'm not blaming you specifically, but rest of America, normie America, and you are going to keep piling it in, and it's going to climb up that SP 500, and the more it climbs up, and it's going to scoop government contracts, and just before it scoops government contracts, every politician with a husband, an interesting husband of a certain kind of, how do I say it? Well, you know what I mean. We'll be buying calls as that contract is awarded, and the great cacocracy of stripping you of your wealth and getting ever wealthier with the combination of ETFs have actually hoovered up all the capital, starving small businesses of capital, of growth, and small businesses create way more jobs. 18% of jobs are done by the SP 500. That's it. And you are not getting jobs, and you've been starved of work, but we keep feeding the beast. Keep feeding the beast so that we can have more flags like these thrust upon us. We can all take a knee. We can all bow. That led to the inversion perversion. Top 10 stocks now account for 40% of the S&P 500. Top 10 stocks. The other 490 only manage 60%. 490 out of 500. Your debt and fiat debasement. Since 1954, when the gold was valued at $42.22, is now sitting with it valued at $3,350 at a compound loss of 8.4% per year. And that's just accelerating now, friends. Post the dot-com boom, post the subprime boom, and post the CV19 attack vectors brought against you and your money by your controlling permanent governance that is hell-bent on inflation to debase and continue stealing from you and put it in assets with cheap borrowing that they devalue at beneficial rates. Borrow cheap. Inflation is the billionaire enrichment vehicle. It is the leveler on the working classes, the middle classes, and the poor, because they borrow cheap through corporate deals. Who gets credit? Amazon can borrow as much as it's like. Small business down the road, 3 or 4 restaurants, got a battle to get a loan for expansion from its local bank. Why? Because capital is being hoarded and streamed into the only safe place that seems to have a too big to fail decree written under it, and earns the bulk of its earnings from the government itself in status-based contracts. So you vote a government, they take your tax, and they give massive contracts to a select few. They get rich on the pumpermentals of those select few flying, and the select few stocks build a surveillance state that they drop over your head to strip you of your poverties and increase tax on you through inflation, surveillance, and wanting to know everything you own, and bringing you blockchain, where everything you own and all you have in wallets is searchable, and telling you about CBDCs and also biometric IDs from Mexico and America, so that the wrong people that they flooded in of intent while in the inversion perversion state, they flooded them in, so now they need the biometrics to flood them out. They didn't need the biometrics to get them in, but they need them to get them out. And you're the one who's got to have it. You see? Is it the licensed gun holders that are doing the robbing, or the unlicensed guns? They need you licensed. They need to take you away, your licensed guns, because of the crime. And in actual fact, wherever the guns are, and there's plenty of them licensed, there's much less gun crime. Much the same with your new biometrics. Debt fiat debasement, USD, we've covered it, it's down. A cost of living crisis is coming for the layman. Now remember, if you play this right, this all sounds like bad news. Put your hands up if it's bad news. Francis, this is terrible news. This is terrible. Put your hands up. There's a way you play this that you get richer. Now, in real terms, nominal terms, you're going to get very, very rich if you play this right. But in actual real terms, you'll get somewhat wealthier, because you understood the game they're throwing down. The cost of living crisis is coming for everyone else that paid no attention. It's coming for the masses. Commodities, energy, softs, metals, everything that they need. Copper, everything. Fix their house, build a house. Contraction in growth in real terms, high inflation, and a liar government stats are absolutely assured. Tied with a large amount of unemployment if you work a job. That is where we are. That's how your currency is performing in the devaluation stakes. Everyone is trending to zero. Tariffs are inflationary. Now, some people say inflation is just when you expand the monetary supply. That's not inflationary. Okay, it causes prices to rise. Let me say it like that. Because when you expand the money supply, that's actually inflation. Tariffs are causing prices to rise. US companies ate the majority. So I want to show you this tweet here. So there's a lot of other people's information here. Give Scott Linkycombe a follow, and don't forget Kabisi's letter as well. I'm showing you a couple of things that have come from other people in here. Must pay him credit. Goldman's latest, yet still early in us. Let's make this big. You can see it with me. Tariff effects through June 2025. Foreign exporters absorbed 14% of US tariffs. So think there's 100. They absorbed 14. They said, yeah, we're not so keen on this. We'll give you a small cut. Who's absorbing the cost of tariffs? US companies, 64%, that are importing the stuff from the other country. The tariff that is being paid to Trump, which is a new tax. Stop calling it a tariff. It's a code for a tax. It's an economic tax on importing. It's an economic import tax. It's a tax. You could call it a tariff like it means something different. It means you pay money to government. That's a tax. Okay? So let's stop bullshitting each other. Don't tell Trump that. He'll go, it's not a tax, not a tax. Oh, it's a tariff. No, it's a tax. Anytime you have to pay extra money to government for doing something, it's a tax. It's a licensing cost. It's a tax. It's a tax. It's a tax. It's a tax. Inflation's a tax. A tax. It's pay government. It's hold a gun to your head. US consumers 822%. And here's what I'm telling you about how this changes, because this has all been on and off. It's been new. It's been brought out. This is what they're going to do. The companies ate the bulk of it. Do you think they can eat 64%? US companies and US consumers amount to 86%. Trump tariffed his own people. He tariffs his own people and his own businesses. Tariff is a tax. Repeat after me. He taxed America. Trump has taxed America. Get it into your head. Trump taxed America. American businesses and American consumers has made their life more hard and more difficult, and is telling you, Powell better cut those rates. The people need those lower rates. It's a terrible Fed. I should have him fired. No. Theater, actor, big performer, liar. Call them the liar. They are born lying. Their name and their game is deception and deceit. He's a liar. The political classes are deception agents. He worked on The Apprentice. It was part of his training. He was owned from the day his casino was going bust, and he was carried by the same cartel. This is payback. For his lifestyle, he's been able to leave. For crashing his business, he was born into that cult. Okay? Consumers will see bigger price increases through the fall. Protected US companies also raised prices. Okay, so let's absorb that. You weren't affected by tariffs, but everyone else was, so you can increase your margins and raise prices. Tell me that's not inflationary. It's an increase in cost. It's a CPI rise. It is increased cost of living. Consumers will see bigger price increases through the fall. Those US companies can't eat that much. They thought we'll take the uncertainty while they're sorting this tariff mischief out. Now it's settling down. What's actually going to happen? The corporates are going to push prices up. That 64 goes down to 40 or 50, and the consumer goes up to 40 or 50 itself. You are paying. You will pay. Americans, hear me now. You are paying for tariffs. All this talk, all of this, go Trump fighting for us. Show that company what for. Show China, my enemy. My goodness, have you got a lot to learn if you think that? Status organizations will work tirelessly with retailers and their statistical bureaus to mask the inflation they are creating till it is in complete runaway mode. How do they do that? Shrinkflation, low standard substitution, estimation. We're doing estimation since tariffs. Did you know that? That it crept into the CPI numbers, estimation. Political interference. Man, in fact, there was a Zero Hedge article. I'm not sure I've got it up here. How are you guys doing? Are you enjoying this? Listen to this. Here's shrinkflation, drip pricing. I went to Frankfurt to go and deliver a paper. I had to use Ryanair. I didn't want to. I hate them. They're awful. The price on the ticket was about 25% of what I ended up paying. You pay for this, your luggage. Oh, you want a chair with that. Oh, you want to sit down for the 4 hours. Oh, you want a place to put your briefcase. My goodness. Oh, hold on a minute. Ooh, must write that up. That's drip pricing. That's how they do it. Absolute lies. Absolute lie. Greedflation is what they're going to call profiteering. They're going to throw that at your farmers and your food processors. It's in the inflation. The government did it to you. It's in the debt debasement. The government did it to you. They want the inflation while saying they don't. It's their biggest tool against impoverishing you and enriching themselves. They need a lot of it now. They need an excess amount of it now because they've got to the end of a debt-based cycle, which is why the 2020 short call on debt was the most significant call, because it ended a cheap funding mechanism for them where people were still prepared to buy the asset price, the asset they created when they did debt. There is no more appetite for it in the same way. We are in financial repressional times when bonds are all underperforming below zero, going more down in capital value, giving insufficient yield for the true inflation rate. In other words, shrinking. Do you want to do this not-for-profit investment where you end up with significantly less money at the end of the duration and you lose all access to that money until the duration is up? Put your hands up if you want that investment. I'm ready to take the other side of that trade with you. So, yeah, all forms. You can go and check this Zero Hedge article, by the way, out. I can throw it out. How inflation buzzwords manipulate. So that's what they do. This is actually tax scavenge mode. People don't realize tariffs is exactly what we warned was coming, a tax scavenge mode. He needs money from anywhere, anyhow. He needs to do a tax increase without the Americans. He's doing a tax increase, all the while pushing up their prices, which the Fed knows, which J. Powell knows. They all know. That's why you get YouTubers like Schneider that say, why doesn't the Fed get the message? The economy's turned down. Yes, it has turned down. It's wrecked. We're in hyperstagflation. It's stagnating. It's been worse than that. When you were still saying the economy is strong, we were telling you it was broken, you were in recession. It's absolutely stagnating. But that doesn't mean you can cut rates, because the hyper part is also applying to the inflation, and nobody wants the debt. That means interest rates have to go up, debt values have to get debased, they have to get cheaper for new buyers to come in and pay a much higher yield. That's what's required. That is what's required. What just happened last night? Now we've got to get into this. Governments receiving commissions from statist tech megacorps. So here you have our friend from NVIDIA standing with the orange man in his red tie. What happened? Last night, news emerged of a trade deal that has never happened before. Innovator! Donald Trump's an innovator. He's an innovator fighting for America. Yeah, Captain America. Oh my God. NVIDIA and AMD agreed with Trump. Trump's at the forefront. Yay, Trump. Trump is doing it for us. To provide the US with 15% of revenue from chip sales to China. So everything he sells to China, he has to give 15% of the revenue. What do you think he does with his prices to China? He puts his prices up. China gets some inflation as well. The chips cost more. He pays a tax to Donald Trump, who can't meet his interest bill at the moment. That's the problem he's got. But never mind, we'll do a big, beautiful bill, throw 200 or 300 billion at the military industrial complex and carry on like we always have. So what's actually happening here? Now there's tariff deals being done with megacorps. So let's just stand back and understand the history. By the way, Apple is one that's made some commitments as well. This is tax scavenge mode. And you've got to realize the dark state created these fascist megacorps. It's payback time for them to keep the Ponzi going. The dark state that runs the political government, that gave, in California, Tesla got credits for being battery and climate friendly. These guys got waived. By the way, they failed very early, NVIDIA, an SEC fraud claim. That's right, they were bust for fraud. Cojones, in fact, was behind showing that they were cooking the books, and indeed it turned out they were. But that all got brushed over. Carry on what you're doing. Bottomless overdraft. Keep scaling, keep scaling. We need the chips, we need the chips. Remember the COVID? There's a shortage of chips. There's a shortage of chips. Here's NVIDIA, right man, right time, ready to do the running for you, making chips for Africa. Yeah, making chips for Africa. Well, now they get to pay. You see that there is no real private industry when you're at that level. That is a status department. It may as well be a government business that. It is paying income to where it's needed. It is paying something. Trump didn't negotiate that. There's a big circle of corporate facet megacorps that were given bottomless overdrafts that could run profit losses for a decade and a half, like Amazon, that were built to be big and then sell government services back to government and get tax payments. That is a rig. They were set up to win, and everyone insiders participated in the upside Ponzi-onomics of Amazon and Apple, all becoming trillion-plus market caps. Now they've got to say, hold on, it's ring-a-ring-a-rosies, and the state is a bit weak. Now we've got to find a way to reallocate some of the money, all the profits that are being made in the good bits, the corporate fascist Mossad CIA-created entities. We've got to find a way to get those profits back into government so we can maintain the Ponzi we've got going on debt. How do you do it? Trump will negotiate. I'm from The Apprentice. You're fired. You must pay me now. You must pay me now. Oh, okay. We'll do a press conference. No, it's all organized at a level well above them. He's standing there looking like the guy. We had a negotiation. And I said no. The money goes where it's needed. You're getting a transfer. You had a seeding transfer of capital, venture capital that built these corporations, always with the intention of building your surveillance grid, and had bottomless overdrafts and government contracts. Now they need to pay back to sustain the very government that was part and parcel, the dark state behind it all, who runs all these corporate. Zuckerberg, the teenager, you really think he was a CEO and ran good board meetings at 18 years old, 19 years old? You're really buying this stuff. These are front men. All these big businesses starve small businesses, your mate's restaurant chain, your friend's car dealership, mechanic store. They don't get capital for these behemoths that are all inside the cult. And now the cult needs the money to come out of those behemoths into the government itself to just sustain operating. It is just a transfer mechanism for a captured bunch of absolute criminals. A cacocracy, my friend. Go MAGA. The dark state created them. As already stated, the top 10 stocks now account for a record 40%. Have a look at this one. This is Kabisi's letter. Shout out to them. We're using a couple of their tweets there. They're throwing out good stuff. Give them a follow. The problem is, what happens to small companies? Good question. Small businesses account for 44% of US GDP. Call it half. And more importantly, the S&P 500 only employs 18% of Americans. These businesses do not have the leverage. They're not getting custom deals. Don't forget, with NVIDIA, it's only on what they sell to China that gets this tariff. You know, I thought we weren't transferring our IP to China. I thought we were smarter than them in everything we did. They hadn't transcended us in everything. We weren't going to give them our best technology. Oh, for a fee, it seems we will. Just charge them 15% more and give the failing state some money towards their interest bill that they can't make. They've just passed the big, beautiful bill. It's going to get worse. Okay, don't worry. We're going to do the inflation trick on the citizens. It's going to go parabolic. It's going to go up 60, 70%. Their bread's going to go up 60, 70% a year soon. Don't worry. The parabola is coming. We won't need to do that for much longer. The debt will be debased so well, and they'll be all in the line. UBI. 158. Look at this chart. Employment in S&P. Total employment in the US economy is 158. Total employment in the S&P 500 is 29. I'd imagine that is in a number of 100 millions. So you would be 158 million and 29 million in there. They don't give that much in jobs, 29 million. But boy, they're getting custom deals. Who in the UK remembers George Osborne negotiating a tax deal for Google while at the NFL Super Bowl? That's right. Of course he got comped. Of course he got a nice hotel. Of course he agreed a number well below 2%. Would you like a chance to negotiate your tax at well below 2% for your company? Put your hand up if you'd like that. Are you getting the invite? I don't know if you're gonna. I didn't get the invite. I was in the UK then. I didn't get that invite. With the double Dutch thingy, Apple was paying less than 1%. It was like 0. Fuck all. That's what it was. Okay, so Apple 2. So what you've actually got is you've got a recycling of money going back to maintain the statist government self from the corporate status that are building your prison that got seeded long time ago. And this is how it ends, friends. You know, with every mega cap dark state, you have a political Zionist movement, MAGA Drumpf, and you have this mega cap dark funded corporate fascists. And when you add those two together, it ends in totalitarian digital Bolshevik communism. Sadly, even every Bolshevik triumph also has a habit of bringing a major genocide, often involving Christians. You saw it in Russia, you saw it in China, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And plenty in Latin America too. The same people who created Bitcoin in 2009, the depths of a banker bailout depression. We were in a banker bailout depression in 2009. That was a full-blown depression. And what happened? They socialized all their losses on us. That kept a decade of terrible 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, garbage years, garbage years, garbage years, garbage years. Macroeconomically, they were weak. Unless you were in Australia, they were weak, and maybe New Zealand. They were awful for the rest of the world because we all got to pay in inflation, debasement of currency, filling massive balance sheet holes that the privatized gains, socialized losses crew of the bankers did. That's where the Big Short comes from. Go watch that movie, get all the detail. We don't have to visit it more here. You are the patsy, you are the mark, you always have been. Inflation is the most serpent-like theft mechanism they have, and boy, do they love to use it. They're going to be bringing it down hard and brutal coming because they've got a massive debt pot to while away, and Trump will be saying all that time, it's time, Jay Powell, drop the rates. And Jay is going to be going, and some YouTubers will be going, why can't you see the terrible economy stuff? And you'll all go, it's the debt, stupid. Nobody wants to pay bigger prices for it. Don't you understand? We need it. We're in financial repression times. Financial repression times means the debt is continually eroded, devalued on an ongoing basis. And at the same time paying a terrible yield relative to what the true inflation rate is, which you will not hear from any government agency. So that's the inflation. The stagnation. Massive job losses for the indigenous American worker. You've already seen it on the H-1B visa. You'll continue to see it due to AI replacement. Breadline and food stamp levels are going to go to new highs for the majority. Remember, not you. You're going to be smart. There's going to be a resources boom. There is some upside. Resources boom. Softs, we're going to trade long with HVF method. It tells you which things are going to move. That's what we do. Click the link below. You can come and get wealthy trading. It's the most obvious, strongest bull market that's coming. It's going to set up continuation patterns all the time. You're going to get overperformance every second time. We're going to grow. You're going to see cryptos go up. You're even going to see at a nominal level the stock markets continue to creep up. Don't, however, divide it by gold or the Swiss franc, because you'll realize that in actual fact, they are no longer performing. So if you do have all those ETFs, you do have all those big pipes, you have given your voting power to BlackRock. Cancel those. You can buy the shares that will win themselves. A lot of them will be miners as the reserve asset, the creation of the reserve asset classes of gold, silver, and platinum. They will do exceptionally well and they will outperform. And we'll be doing a chat with Don Durrett as well. And in our community, we're going to set up our list of miners. We've already played with some, but we're going to be getting serious because the gold bull is just starting. The debasement is just starting. The inflation is really yet to come. And when everyone talks about it, it will be in the bread price. It will be in the soup price. It will be in the meat price. It will be in the chicken price. It will be in the eggs price. And that moment hasn't even yet come, although you've started to see some signs. And that is the last shoe to drop in inflation. And you're going to get the unemployment. That's going to bring the stagnation. That's going to bring the job lines, the unemployment payments, the welfare that's going to be needed for UIF. That's going to be a huge burden on America. Be careful. AI replacement is going to bring the stagflation. Huge rate spikes is going to crush the property, going to bring stagnation. Realtors are going to go out of business. Reduced access to finance for debt origination for small businesses. Small businesses will be the ones that will get even further choked of access to capital in the downturns, because they know too big to fail, loan to Nvidia, loan to Schmoogle, loan to Amazon, billions, get billions out on a loan book on a really low percent, but no one's going to fire you because government will always make you whole. It is the same old story. They've been already clearing out the rats and mice of the smaller banking groups who have been acquired by the big boys. This is bully boy. It's not capitalism. This is a corporate fascism. This is scale, hoovering up everyone else. They have the highest valued shares. They can buy out better products from innovators and destroy them for nothing with equity alone. And we made them high value by buying ETFs that bought by the biggest mover of the day. Pension fund collapses for all those pension funds, particularly exposed to debt markets. As the demographic is wrong and the investment class they've invested in is wrong, pension-based collapses are going to come. That means elderly people who've saved and worked all their lives that think they're going to have a good retirement, aren't. They're going to be battling. They're going to be eating cat food. You're going to hear all those stories again. Invest now. Get your dad and your mother, if they are still alive and with you, to make sure they understand what is coming. You need to position for huge increases in the bill of everyday costs, energy, food, and heat. You really need to do it. You need to do it. Exit taxes are coming for Westerners. If you haven't already left, they're going to come. They're going to want you. They're talking about it now. I saw Rees-Mogg talking about it now. His father in Sovereign Man wrote a book of individual sovereignty, various title, I can't quite remember it, predicted that exit taxes. You see, governments don't like your freedom. Governments don't like your freedom, don't like you leaving the slave plantation when they're used to flogging you and getting out of you everything they want and taxing you and got you cornered and can rip you off blind. That's how they live. Exit taxes, don't wait, move now. I've told you this, you don't want to hear it, I've told you it. Optionality, get out. Residencies elsewhere, reduced police protection, refuse collection, park maintenance, etc., etc. Excuse, no money, no budget. Yes, I've seen it happen. I've seen it come. I saw the ANC in South Africa. I saw it. Pharmaceutical feels good. Feel good factors and antidepressants are going to become big. So there's going to be an antidepressant boom. And I'm not here to make you depressed. I'm here to tell you the opportunity. I'm here to tell you how you fork on the right side instead of becoming the grand mass. This is an opportunity. With every crisis, there's an opportunity. You need a position. You need to get aggressive. You need to build wealth. You need to be able to trade continuation. It's going to be some of the best markets we've ever seen. We're going to be talking about HVF method on all forms of equities that are going to be doing very, very well in our community, and we're going to keep building and positioning for it. This is all coming as part of it. In fact, a lot of it is already here. Watch out, the antidepressant markets, don't take them. You'll end up cancered out. That's right. You know how they love a little bit of CV19 mRNA into a cancer. The big pharma and scaled industrial food complex are going to almost merge. It's almost like you won't be able to differentiate between Procter & Gamble, which is kind of like toothpastes and stuff, big food corp, and a pharmaceutical company. And you're going to have the likes of Bill Gates spraying your food with all sorts of things. We've seen that happen with Appeal. Hyperstagflation, guys. It's financial. Let's summarize. It's financial repression. It's there to devalue the debt and fiat. They need it. They want more of it. It's also a tax on you. They need it and they want more of it. They want you UBI. They want a problem reaction solution event where they can bring in their UBI and curtail your freedoms. It's coming. A commodity bull market, spikes food and energy. It's exactly what they wanted to push the inflation up all the time, acting like they're shocked and everybody else is gouging you and I'll fire him and I'll tell him what for. Don't buy the stupid theater. Nominal stock market highs do not mean good performance anymore, because the debasement of money is going to be such that you could be going backwards and still holding a nominal number and making a nominal high. High unemployment, build your own businesses, work from anywhere. It's time to start thinking about that. What's your side hustle? Runaway living costs, we've said enough on that. The scavenge taxes will keep coming. Tariffs is a scavenge tax for a government that does not have enough income and has too much debt. Hear me now. Tariffs, whether applied to another nation or on their own corporations, is a tax. It's a bailout of government. It's a tax. We need desperate money. We'll just write a rule that says you pay us. Imagine me stopping a corporate and say, how about you just pay me 15% of everything you sell in this country? Are you kidding me? Who'd agree to that? Only if you are part of the cartel and the money needs to go round and round and one half of the circle is looking a little bit dry and needs its little lips wet occasionally and is falling apart. That's why it's being agreed. Alleged massive fraud in CPI statistics. Be on watch for this. Everything is going to become a chronic lie. It's going to be absolute disbelief. What is 138? Somebody in the who's watching this, calculate $138, 138% on over 5 years. What is a food bill from Walmart lost each year? How much more do you have to pay to average in 5 years a bill that is 138% more? Looking for the answer. Someone throw it down. There's an app for that. Rampant gold and silver markets signal the final distrust in fiat systems. It's going to go. It will go. It's not looking at, not yet on the technical side, but in the macro, it's going higher. And by the way, have you got a zero capital gains location where you will not be taxed out of your gains, not be forced to sell your gold and silver to meet the unrealized capital gains or capital gains that they might try lavish on you, even if you don't sell the item? As a hodler, they will probably go unrealized. I think people are underpricing unrealized tax gains. Precious metal holders are patient people. They hold them for multi-generations even. Never mind, they're just their life. How do they get you out of it? How do they remove that financial foundation that you have? They need to tax you out of it. You made an unrealized capital gain. We need the money now. You've got a government that I'm telling you is in scavenge mode. I've explained that tariffs is a tax on the US consumer and the US businesses. Do you get it? They need money. He's getting money. He's chasing everyone around with money. This guy's running up and down the church pews, or should I say the synagogue, with his hat off and saying, Chaila, Chaila, Chaila. Give us the shekels, buddy. We need it. We can't pay. He's going to every single corporation. They're going to get custom deals, and all the small businesses are going to pay a flat rate that he's just decreed. Why? For doing business. For buying and selling and trade. This is extortion. That's what the Mongol Turkic breed on the Marco Polo route did. That's what they did. Ransom and extortion. You crossed our lands. Pay. You sailed round our ports. Pay us, just because. Warmongery. Yeah, increased state interferences reduces your freedoms, especially for the masses. This is part of the stagnation. High personal and small business bankruptcies, guys. Bankruptcies. Listen, if you're too far gone, if you're a heavily indebted guy watching this, don't struggle and make interest-only payments. Truly. I'm not giving advice. I would not. Let me reframe that and say, I would not. It's better to start on zero than minus some ungodly number. Don't let the tertiary extractors grind you down. Start again is my diktat if I were ever in that situation personally. That doesn't mean I can advise you to do the same. We're a non-advisory channel. I stop myself in my pain for feeling your respective agonies. If you are in such a situation, you should always contact your local advisory, your regulated local advisor. Yeah. Western world state pensions will fail. So even the state pensions will fail. They're going to push out the age. You're going to have to work for longer. You'll draw it for less, and they're going to try to terminate you. That's right. That's what CV19 was after all. Extreme wealth polarization will divide society. There will be VIP lanes for the rich who will pay the higher prices and just have an easier life. And there will be UBI queues for the masses who will get menial services from the state at best with massive compliance criteria. Also, not mentioned and not necessarily economic events. Beware the great taking. Own your own share certificates in your name. Bank bail-ins are possible. Exit taxes. We've already touched on that. Pandemic lockdowns, new forced medical interventions. Nuclear, significantly new large-sized wars could occur, which of course you might have to go fight or pay for as part of further corruption. So when they do war, they steal from you. You know that the whole military industrial complex and arms dealers are all crooks, murderers and vandals whose sole goal is to steal in the name of selling somewhat technologically advanced methods of killing other people. To steal from you and to sell somewhat technologically advanced methods of scale killing other people. Is there anything more Turkic Mongol than that? I don't know. Planned food shortages, famine, droughts and floods. Watch out for weather modification. Bank hacks blamed on foreign nations. Other weather modification tricks, including earthquakes and fires. Have we had a few of those? You might wonder. Currency crashes and volatility, national debt busts, IMF bailouts, but with very draconian terms that are largely draconian towards the people, not the politicians that got you into that situation, nor the central bankers. The carry trade full unwind will be real fireworks. Derivative markets could have a force majeure situation if they are remaining short on the silver and gold markets, or the banks just won't be able to hold their positions in various markets where they are too over leveraged and are not making sufficient returns. Beware the alien invasion psyop. The global resources needed and a worldwide tax. We're all in this together. We need to defend. This is like a Hollywood movie script. Watch out, the extraterrestrials and Operation Blue Beam. Yes, isn't that lovely? They could suddenly banish all the nation states. We need a one world tax to have the resources to protect the planet from the evildoers, the terrorists, the alien terrorists. Little green man. That's when I start peeing in my pants with laughter. They broke cover. That'd be pure comedy when they pull that one. And many think it's coming. Okay, let's have a look at some of your comments. Have you enjoyed this presentation? How are you done? This is what's waiting. Hyperstagflation. It's big on the stag and it's big on the inflation. That's what hyperstagflation is. That's what I mean every time I say it. But it comes with opportunity. Opportunity for those that clearly understand and will fight for their freedoms, that will look for optionality with regards to things like capital gains, freedom of movement, etc. Will this be universal? Yes. Who's getting it hardest? The West. You're all living in the West. You're listening to someone speak in a language that resembles English. You live probably in the grand Western English realm. That takes you from New Zealand right the way to Canada and many places in between on the way to England, Europe, and many others. By the way, those are the worst places to see this out. Don't think other nations are lower caste than yours or lower standing if they are outside their zones. You will see them in upward trends. Malaysia, Indonesia, places you never thought of. You will have better quality of life. There will be much less significant changes. There will be less depression. There will be less people. There will be less zombies walking around on pharmaceutical antidepressants than there's going to be in the West, because you've never had it so good for so long on a Goldilocks fraudulent economy that was put on a credit card, and now that credit card's coming due. You don't have to stick around to pay this bill. You never arranged this party. You never said you would pay. You ate well, get the hell out before the bill gets called. It's time. There's another table where you can join and you can contribute and you can pay your fair share. That will still be a better standard of living. You're not the cleanup squad for some boomer generation that has inverted the demographics, lived the life of Riley, been given umpteen booms to get exorbitantly wealthy, and then put everything on the credit card that's now going bust. That's bringing the hyperstagflation, which is the exact inversion of the Goldilocks economy with super low inflation, strong growth, etc., etc. You don't need to live it. You didn't do it. You don't need to live it. You didn't do it. That's my take. Your take is what matters. What action you will take is what's going to matter. Haven't heard anyone mention Bluebeam for a while, says somebody. Yeah, slightly more eccentric part of the presentation, I would say. But we are seeing someone of particular type mentioned from Harvard, you know, that school where they do all their spooks. It's kind of like Oxford and Cambridge, talking of this thing that's flying straight at Earth. You know, it's quite clear. We've calculated, we've measured, and we've calculated. It's coming for us. In fact, it looks like it's being steered. It must be an alien. We might need to shoot it down, but that means we're almost paying military-industrial complex tax for the new super missile. Shoot the spaceship down missile. Yeah, you can see that one coming. I don't say I fly cattle cross. I had to go to Frankfurt. There were no other options. Otherwise, I avoid it. I throw fiat at people's faces. Dejected fiat. YouTube blocking Francis. If you brought gold, I hope not, but who knows? We might not survive forever, guys. One day we'll go dark. One day these rants will be historical moments in time. Too much truth is a revolutionary act in antiseptic times. Taxation to prevent invasion. Yeah, that's it. It was up 30% on the year. You're losing out every day on fiat. 250 likes. Yes, 250. There's 600 of you on board. 264 likes. That's very good. Civil war. The idea religion is dead hides the fact that you don't need religion to find God and do God's work. Geoengineering to the moon. CBDC run by JP Morgan. Time to buck up, people. Man, this guy doesn't stop dropping bombs. We're the bombers. We're the B-29 of... We're the B-29 super fortress of truth bombs. You've never seen so much incendiary explosives. This is turning into a nuclear event, this live stream. And you, David Webb, that's the name, the first name David, Mr. Webb's, the great taking. You've got to watch up. Pull up your socks, everybody. Yep. We are the remnants. Fed will have to monetize if dollars are to be printed. They can't print because to print, you do two things. You create a dollar and a debt instrument. Everybody needs to understand this. This is my biggest one that everybody doesn't get. Everyone, oh, but print, we did it in, after the subprime. Print means issuance of a debt instrument that says you owe an interest payment to someone and create dollars and then go and invest it somewhere. So you've got to understand there's a T-bill account. You don't just print. You print money, you create a debt instrument. Who's the buyer? Someone has to buy the debt instrument for the money to be released to you. Do you understand? When you don't just print. You want to buy a house, you have to apply for a loan. You pick up a liability. You don't just get $500,000 to buy a house. You get a liability with that. And that's somebody else's asset, and they get paid interest payments. Do you understand? That's the creation of money. Even the Fed, when they create money, create debt instruments and a liability and an interest payment. Do you understand that? You don't just print your way out. If you print, you have to sell a debt instrument to somebody. After the turning, this is why 2020 is so important. Please understand this. After the turning of the debt markets, there is a reduced appetite for a huge supply, a pipe this big, the breadth of Jupiter, of debt instruments that people have that they would love for some pension fund to buy. There's way too many, and they're holding a line at a mark-to-market level that isn't supported by real volume. That if a lot of actors all sold their debt instruments at once, you would have an absolute gap down and a spike up in rates. Ask Britain, they had it. Ask America at peak tariff tantrum in April. They had it. And they stopped super quick, and those rates went like this. And they said, whoa, boy. We wind it all back. We didn't say it. We were just joking. Yeah? Remember that. That's what happens. There is no more power in the debt markets. It is very fickle. It is not well supported. It is not a desired asset. You don't just print, because printing means you are issuing new debt, and there are no new buyers on any grand scale. Okay, and that's also why you can't just cut rates, but you say, hey, those crogs you don't want for $10, how about $50? Will you take a pair at 50? No, people aren't going to pay more for something they didn't want when it was less. You see that? Okay, that's why you can't cut. Please learn, understand the mechanisms of the bond marking, the teachings of a person while you're around them. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg versus their story in 2,000 years if there was no video. Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting one. You'll see all the people that were around them. I came up with 18.6% compounded average GR for that inflation. Thank you, Argent Pur. It wins the award today for actually doing the calculation that I asked. So, to be clear, the Walmart bill, as described in 2020, when put in the same basket, the same goods in the same basket today on the same store, Walmart, product for product, like for like, 5 years later, that is 136%, or was it 134? Call me a liar for 2%, 134% more expensive, calculates at 18.6% per annum loss in buying power in terms of food. You are already experiencing a lot of what I've been warning you about in this live stream. You are already experiencing it. That is double-digit inflation on a basic food stuff, which is a commoditized item with very thin margins for the farmer originator. In fact, the supermarket here probably makes the most margins out of it, and they are very scaled big businesses that have to be competitive because there are other scaled big businesses. If you're not at Walmart, you're at Costco or somebody else. So the margins are thin, and they have gone up 18.6%. Those are generally not very price elastic. You can't easily just put a price increase. People will go elsewhere. It's basic foodstuffs. It's got everything. It's a massive hit to people's disposable income, and it's an absolute essential and a necessity. 18.6% per year, 5 years in a row at 18.6%. That means the average is 18.6%, and I'm imagining that's got more bad in the last year or two rather than in the previous 3. But that's just me looking at a parabola, looking at gold, looking at a whole bunch of things and saying, it don't smell right. That's just me. Thank you for the calculation too. Arjun Pur, well done. You get a like from me. Can I click the like next to a comment? Click, click, click. Okay. 7.6 per year, non-compounded. It's got to be compounded, bro. Vets need to be farm people born. It's more of a feel versus 100% schooling thing. Yes, I do think there's some truth. You need the biology, but you need the animal. Physical platinum to the moon. Yep. Jason Wers, not too hard to figure out. Gold to survive the crash stagflation. Yep, but there'll be miners that will run hard. You really need to make alpha, not just 20%, guys. You want your portfolio. Hey, I'm not giving you any indication, but I think you should be able to, in these times, if you only position long on a stagflationary trade, to make conservatively anywhere from 30 to 70% in these times, if you are just in the areas where you should be. But that's a guess. It's not advice. UBI is a lock. Yeah, Francis is killing it. Food is starting to rocket in the UK. Yeah, I'm afraid so. What would be useful would be to list all commodities and predict where they'll be over the next 20 years. Well, we are watching commodities. We are looking particularly at the softs, but we'll look at the grains, we'll look at everything else. The beans have been particularly good. Anyway, guys, there's a way you can win. There's a way. Keep your mood up. You were born for these times. You were chosen. Actually, the universal subconscious mind, you have the opportunity to plug into with your own subconscious. When you meditate, I hold my breath in the cold plunge. I put my fingertips together and I forget about breathing, and I connect to the universal subconscious mind. And I ask for guidance and strength. In times like these, we were born for them. There is great wisdom in the ether of it all, and you can source it. And it says, many of them says, you chose your parents and you chose to be born of these times. You chose this. Don't cringe. You forget why you are here. You cringe in anxiety and fear, and you reach for pharmaceuticals. You forget why you are here. You've lost your discipline. You've got to be a man who hikes, walks, rides, cold plunges, keeps your mind up, keeps strong, recognizes you chose this. You chose this experience. You are exactly where you should be. You are trained to be here. You are strong enough to handle it. You need to get your discipline straight, get your micro habits straight, get your mind right, get your attitude right, get strong, recognize this. Don't lose yourself in rage against those that plotted so darkly against us all. You transcend them into that infinite consciousness. You chose this experience. When you pass, you'll probably be on another one. Just be someone of principle during your time. Be the best version of yourself during these times. And you do that by looking after yourself physically, looking after yourself mentally, taking positive action every single day, recognizing there can't be something so dark that doesn't provide a massive opportunity of an equal degree of light. You could be a leader in these times. You could make a massive difference to a lot of people in a lot of people's lives in these times. And you should look after yourself. You're not a martyr, and help everyone else to do the same. And that is our goal in the Market Sniper. There's a link below, book a call, and you should look to learn HVF method with us as we practice it. And I think some of the best trends of continuation on what is a continuation trend strategy that uses a combination of low volatility and explosive moves that continue the trend. That is one of the best environments to be maximizing wealth during this time and helping others do the same and utilizing that wealth to bring and protect and bring others along with you so that their experience in this world that they've also chosen to be is enriched by your presence. That's why you are here. That's why you are here. You can wrap it up in God's and Jesus's. You can wrap it up in Allah and who knows, Hashem and everyone else. But that is why you are here. How are you going to play the hand you're given? That's what I want you to do. That's what I'm going to remind you of. Spiritually, you are far bigger than you think you are. It's time you stood up. It's time you took action. Not just for yourself, but for all those around you. On those words of great encouragement and promise that there's a mantle for you to seize, I leave you and I say great evening. If you care to share that experience with us, book a call on the link below where you can have a chat and begin the process of becoming a master of trading and investing. And that's not day trading, 5-minute time frames, position trading where you can set and forget and go and do the work for everything else that needs the work, which is the reset side of some of these discussions that I've made. Till next time, I salute you. Thank you for coming on board. Bye for now.